Hey, welcome to the channel. I am very pleased to present this next video that I think will come in two parts collectively, but I have done a Lego mock of the Mark A medium Whippet tank. It's a British make of a tank that was deployed at the end of the First World War, and it came together so well, and I'm so pleased to be able to show it here and explain a little bit about how I put it together. For anyone who's never heard of this tank, the Mark A, that is, it was the first medium tank pretty much ever made, or something of the like at least, that was deployed at the end of the Great War. It was made by the Brits, and it was actually really fascinating. There's an interesting story about a very specific deployment of a very specific Mark A that's called the musical box, or at least it was known sort of colloquially as the musical box among the people who operated it. And I would mess up the details of the actual story, so I would encourage people to go and check that out and find more of the historical detail and the history on it. But it's really fascinating. If you look up the musical box tank, there's a cool story behind that as well. But I kind of started there and went looked at some pictures, some other stuff, some videos from the Tank Museum too. Their stuff is fantastic. And but I put together, essentially in the long run, after all of that work, a build of the medium A British tank, and I'm very happy with the result. I hope that other people can look at it and recognize it as what it is as well. The actual tank is made off the wheel system of the famous British Little Willie, which was it kind of widely acknowledged as literally the first tank prototype ever made in the whole world, which was developed later in the same war, the Great War. But funnily enough, just because it's a prototype didn't mean that it was super revolutionary. And just like the real thing, I had a hard time managing the tracks on this build too, because the only other Lego armored landship I've made is the French Saint-Chamond tank, which I do have featured on my channel, but it's got this rinky-dink little track system at the bottom of this really wide body. So the wheels are coming together right here. I have so many gears and so many Technic bars and stuff on it, and it was just a beast to measure out. But it does work. I will try to get some frames of it rolling, potentially in the part 2 of this, because I don't think I will finish this all in one video. But yeah, it's got these really long treads. It's a really interesting thing, but it was designed to be a fast tank. So historically, they thought that on the Western Front, they would have the British would have Mark IVs or other very heavy, more iconic, like the rhomboid shaped tanks that people think of when they think of the First World War. And then, funnily enough, people don't think of this tank because of that same reason. But near the end of the war, they planned to have those tanks to break through barbed wire and machine gun nests, and then these to follow after, like a mechanical cavalry, and sort of just shoot everyone down. Because this thing only has machine guns on it, which you'll see me put on probably in part 2. But it doesn't have any heavy artillery or anything like that. But it's fun. I found some videos of these specific landships speeding down hills and stuff too, because it's a fast tank. It took a lot of tracks though, so as you'll probably see in part 2, it's kind of a fun put together. But yeah, this is kind of another underrated thing that people might not think of when they think of the Great War, but it definitely was real and it definitely happened. It was such a delight of mine to be able to look up the history on it and learn a little bit about this tank, because I honestly didn't know about this much either. I do also think of the more iconic Mark IV as the main one. In case anyone's asking, I have not done a mock of a Mark IV yet. I might still do one. I haven't gotten around to it, but that would probably take even more tracks than what I have to build this. But the Whippet seemed like a fun idea. It actually was named the Whippet as a joke, kind of, because a Whippet is a type of dog that was known in Britain at the time, and they're really fast. I think they're racing dogs. Catch me if I'm wrong. I don't know if that's actually true, but I think they're racing dogs. And this tank famously went, I think it was 9 miles an hour, maybe. I don't know what that is in kilometers or anything. I'm not from Europe, but it famously went faster than the 4 miles an hour or whatever the other armored landships went at the time. So it had no heavy artillery, but it did have machine guns on it and was used as a medium tank, because the Renault FT-17, which another one that's really iconic that was known as kind of the tank that won the war, with the first rotating turret on it, was a very light tank. It only took 2 men to operate. But the Whippet, or the medium A, which is this one, was somewhere in between. So it was one of the world's first medium tanks, and I think it was still used in World War II, maybe after, but I don't know. It was fun. It was really fun. I encourage people to go and check out and learn about this tank because I feel like not a lot of people know about it, and it's such a fun thing to feature and to build. And I'm trying not to sound entitled, but I do think I did a pretty decent job putting this together. I think it looks a lot like it. I saw lots of fun pictures of Whippet tanks hauling around all kinds of supplies, and it has all these hooks and stuff on it, which are my all-time favorite thing to build. You know, supplies on the outside of tanks and armored vehicles and things. So I in the end, as the end result, I tried to make mine look like it was kind of a war tractor, which is one of my favorite ways to put that. So funnily enough, looking at this piece right here, the build did end up being 5 bricks along. Now, this is not necessarily like, you know, how you might play Minecraft or something, but I don't ever build in odd numbers. Minecraft is great for that when it comes to making houses or something. When it comes to building Lego, I always do even numbers because it adds everything up really nicely. But when it came to the shape that I needed for this and how it would be to fit figures inside, it had to be an odd number, and it's a miracle. The thing looks fantastic, and it is 5 studs across. So I'm really proud of that. It was a lot of work, as you might see. It has a lot of weird kind of shapes that fit together. But it's good. It's good. I'm glad that I picked 5 studs because 6 was too large and 4 was just too small. So it just figured itself out. Right here, I'm putting in the steering wheel. The steering wheel is funny. I was reading some stuff about like not just the weapons on the Whippet, but also how it functioned. And the steering wheel was connected to 2, I think there were a bus engine, like British bus engines that were connected to the tracks independently. So the steering wheel, I heard that the Whippet was hard to drive because it was like driving 2 cars or 2 buses even at the same time. So, but it had a steering wheel that was like a car for the most part, which is cool. The cab on the inside here, these yellow pieces will be covered up, but the cab in the inside had a wooden floor. And I mean, the cab that I made, I don't think was as big as it should have been. I ended up only being able to fit 1 minifigure inside, which the original crew of the Whippet was 3. So I could only ever fit 1. I was really, really happy that I could get 1 in there because it was looking like I might have to not put any in at all. And I can't do that personally. I don't like filling in things with bricks when you could try really hard to fit a guy in there or trying to change a minifigure so he could fit inside something. I don't know why, I'm just picky about that. But I did end up with a full, to some degree, less accurate, but I did end up with a full interior for a minifigure to sit down at that wheel. And you'll see, I'll put in the wooden floorboards here too, which is fun. But yeah, this tank was a lot of fun to build. Very, very pleased with the product because it was some very complex angles. For people who know the medium A or the Whippet tank, it has some very, 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 very steep angles to keep bullets and grenades off of it, as most tanks at the end of the First World War did. But it means that it was just a beast for me to build. But in the result, though, I'm fairly happy with it. I'm similar to how I explained in my Saint-Chamond video. I did have to sort of compensate some things for other things, and there were some angles I wish I could have gotten that I didn't. But I think overall it's okay. I think it really captures the feel. The end result I'm a little disappointed with because it's a little more gray than I would have liked. I try to incorporate some color if I can manage it, and I did add some white accents later. Which you'll see in part 2. But I think it's okay. I used lots of supplies and stuff to decorate it and keep it kind of in sort of a busy construction from my supply video, which I made, which people really liked. I'm really glad that people appreciated. That was my World War I mini build stuff. So if people have any interest, you can check that as well. It's the supplies that I end up putting on this thing also. But yeah, working at 5 studs was really weird. I ended up with all these different hinges and angles that will probably be seen in part 2 and all sorts of, you see I have so many studs sticking out on sides there. And there are some clever connections I'm pretty proud of. So I'm glad that it all sort of worked out in the long run and it wasn't like super obnoxious to look at eventually. And it kind of came together in a way that was really, really, really satisfying. So lots of smooth pieces here. I tried not to leave too many studs exposed so that it would look, you know, like it just has a whole bunch of extra pieces on there that were not intentional. So I tried to keep more of it smooth on the interior and the exterior so that it looked pretty intentional and more like plate armor and less of like, you know, like it was really, really grungy. But it kind of helped that I found that the medium A actually had a couple different variations. There were going to be some more that were made actually that were actually not made because of the end of the First World War, but because there was going to be a medium B and a medium C, both that were not made at all. but it was pretty nice how it all kind of shook out. But this one, like I was mentioning before, has a very specific like had different variables and different things that were changed, which I think I got kind of lucky with, because it meant that if I had things that were kind of different or kind of like could be close to what it was supposed to look like, but you could have some understandable changes too. And I kind of like that freedom in being able to build things and to do that. So this is it. This is part one for the medium A. I naturally am going to at least make a part two, maybe a part three. I don't think it will take that long, so be on the lookout for that. And it'll look a lot more like it's supposed to than where it is right now, because it doesn't look like it's really really getting anywhere. But it's all a good foundation for a pretty fantastic build when it comes all together, and a lot of the detail work is at the end. But appreciate people coming along and checking this out. I also encourage people to check out the stuff themselves. It's pretty fascinating, I found, looking at this kind of thing myself and learning some more about this land ship that is not well known for either of the wars. So check it out. Check out the Music Box story. It's an interesting story for sure. And I will see you in part two.